You know what? Now that you guys know how to process your deer, now what do you do with it next? You know, today what we're going to be doing, and I'm actually going to be learning a lot today, which I love, is I'm going to learn how to can my venison. And I'm with my good friend, Gwen, right?
Nice to see you.
Actually, my neighbor down the road, she's better known as the bird lady because she's the only person I know that actually has more birds than I do. But Gwen, I'll tell you something. You know what? You are a great neighbor to have because you're always bringing me over things. You know, and a while back you brought me over some canned venison, and I thought to myself, wow, this is really good. Now, I want to learn how to can things myself, and I can't think of anybody better to teach than you. So let's kind of go through today. Let's show everybody how you, once your deer, here's this deer we just processed. So it's sitting here. So now what do we do with it? So let's show everybody what we do.
Okay, well, the first thing you want to do is make sure all your supplies and stuff are clean.
Okay.
You want to make sure everything is prepped, ready to go. We have our jars that have been sterilized. We have the lids that once we figure out which jar we're using, we're going to take the lids themselves. I've got a pan of hot water over here. We're going to warm the lids up.
Okay.
All this stuff is going to be dry canned,
Yep.
which means that it's going to be raw packed, no fluids added except for when we do some stew.
Okay.
Now, with canning, you cannot add cornstarch.
Okay.
You can always add the cornstarch to something to thicken it up for a broth after you take it out and heat it up.
Okay.
It's not stable in the jar.
Okay.
So we stay away from that. But we've got a variety of things here. I even brought some little tiny, real hot peppers.
Ooh, I like a little heat once in a while.
Okay, so we're gonna do a little different here. We do have some jars that are already processed.
Okay.
I've been busy in the background. This canner is amazing.
I love to hear that.
I've never worked with one of these before this, and I'm glad that I was able to practice with it for a couple of weeks and get familiar with it. I have LP. So you have to adjust your settings on your stove so you don't go over 10 pounds of pressure. This does everything automatically.
Okay.
We're going to set the time, we're going to set the heat, and it does everything for you.
Okay.
This even shuts off on its own.
That's kind of nice. So you can put it in there and go to bed.
That's what I did last night.
I'd love to hear it. All right, so I've got the venison here. So basically, so what are we going to do? These are just chunks I've taken off my deer, and obviously, you know, when you're going to can it, you're going to clean everything up and get it really nice. You're going to cut off the tallow. You're going to cut off the fat, right? One
of the biggest things I hear all the time is, oh, I don't like the taste of venison. It tastes gamey.
Yes.
Well, that's because all this little stuff, this little fat, has to come off.
I would agree with you 100%.
And then for purposes of the canning, we want like 1-inch cubes. We don't want anything bigger than that because you want the heat to distribute evenly through it so it cooks evenly.
Okay, so listen to that, everybody.
And again, I just cut off the fat. You don't have to worry about the tendon or the silver a whole lot.
Okay, why is that? It'll break down?
It won't matter once it's in the canner. It won't matter. I mean, you can take it off, especially if there's fat attached to it. Like I said, I try to get as much fat off of it as possible. And then we're going to a little bit smaller.
Okay.
You're
See,
about
I'm messing
half
up
that.
already.
About half that, or quarter those. So like this.
Okay, perfect.
You want bite-sized pieces.
Bite-sized, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, you want bite-sized pieces, not huge pieces. And then this one's got a little silver in it. We're not going to worry about this because that'll actually be tender when we get done.
So the canning process actually will break the meat down. Let me ask you a question. I like to eat venison. It's one of my favorite things to eat. But a lot of times, especially at some of our farms, I'll only shoot a big buck. And a lot of times that big buck, the meat is, it's an older deer, and it's not that tender.
And
So-
it's also a little gamier
and it's
because they're in
defi-
rut.
That 100%. So are you saying that when you can it, it actually breaks that meat down and actually gives it a different flavor than versus me just putting it in the freezer and then
The
cooking
flavor
it?
itself, you can tell this smells really good.
Yeah.
You can tell a gamey old buck,
Yep.
and if you've got a gamey old buck, put it in sausage. Don't put it into your
Okay.
cans.
So basically, don't. It's not gonna by canning.
It's going to tenderize an old doe. If you
Yep.
shoot a dry doe that's on her way out anyway,
Right.
this is very healthy. Venison is one of the leanest ones out there, and you want to eliminate what little fat there is.
I have got some applesauce that I canned up probably about 5 years ago. I'm still eating it.
Yeah,
So I
it's
mean,
not going to hurt you.
Right. that's what I can't believe. I mean, so how long actually, if you have it stored in a proper place, is it good to eat? Can you put a date on that?
You put your dates on your lids.
Right.
I date everything. Month and year is plenty good enough. You don't have to get fancy. Also, the contents, like I said, sometimes they change color over time. Fruits are one that really changes colors, like peaches and apples and stuff. The apples get darker, the peaches get darker.
Yeah.
It still tastes the same, but the visual isn't there.
Okay.
But you open that lid and that seal pops when you open it, it's still good.
So that's the main thing right there, is when you open that can to make sure that you hear that lid pop.
Right.
Knowing that no
Now-
air got in there.
The older it is, though, the longer I would warm it up or heat it up.
Okay.
I wouldn't just eat it directly out of the can, except for fruits, your applesauce and stuff. The process is a little bit different. The sugar actually acts as a preservative in those things. But you would like vegetables, low acid stuff, like your corn, your potatoes, carrots,
Okay.
green beans, whatever. Those are considered low acid foods. Those are pressure can only, same as any of your meats. Those, when you heat them up to simmer, boil for like 10 minutes before you consume them.
Okay. That's
Because
interesting.
if there is botulism spores in there, it will kill it.
That
and
is very interesting.
That is why that if you look at the USDA stuff, it always tells you when you open it up, you've got to heat it for 10 minutes at whatever temperature. Follow those guidelines.
Okay.
Safety first.
Right.
If you open it up and it doesn't smell right, toss it out.
Yes.
Don't take the chance. Now, botulism you can't smell. That's one thing with heating stuff up to boiling and, heating it up for 10 minutes after it reaches boil kills whatever microorganisms would be in there.
Okay.
So, how
Good.
are we doing there?
I'm doing really good. All right.
Well-
Looks like we have the meat basically all
Right.
cubed up,
Right.
ready to go. So now on to the next step.
Okay, what we're gonna do here is, I'll dry my hands too. Those smell good.
Yeah.
We're gonna take our jar. This is a half pint, or this one is a pint. For this canner, for meat, you wanna stay with the pint or a half pint jar.
Okay.
Wide mouth works best for meats because trying to get them in,
Stuff it all in there
stuff it all in this size
and
jar.
then get it out.
Although I do use the regular a lot, but for this purpose, I did bring all the wide mouth ones. They do work. Sometimes you can find the wide mouths a lot easier than you can find the regular ones.
Okay.
With shortages of everything, you use what you can. Now these jars are reusable.
That's the great part about canning.
Yes.
Really, you can
Yes.
reuse everything but the lid.
Yes. Now there are people that reuse the lid, but they're also risking.
I'm not reusing the lid. Don't
No.
do it, folks.
No.
They're cheap enough if you can get them.
Exactly.
Don't do it.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's go to step.
All right. Now step 2. I'll put this back. over here for right now. We're going to fill our jar. Now, okay, we got some trim in there to do,
That was my
Larry.
fault. Sorry, folks. All right. I get carried away once in a while.
We don't want to get a whole lot of meat juices on the lid or the rim and stuff. It kind of keeps it from sealing properly. I'm not one for a lot of spices.
I'm a spicy.
Yes, I know you're spicy.
Yep.
So, with my jars, I will pack it. I don't even put salt on my stuff.
Okay.
Because when you're pressure canning it, you don't need the salt for preserving it.
Preservative, okay.
Okay. You want it on spicy, so we got some little peppers here.
I'll take the spice any day of the week,
I'm just going to cut off the blossom end and a little bit off the tip.
And what kind of pepper are we putting in here? Any idea?
These are an ornamental pepper, which compare probably to habaneros
Right.
for spice.
So you're putting just one pepper
I'm
in
just going to put one little
Okay.
pepper in
I'm
this
fine with
jar.
that. Right.
I mean, you can always put more in, but you can't take it out.
Right, that's a fact. Okay.
So, and what we're doing with the meat is we want to
You really
press it in there
I
and
did
get
not.
the air
I would have
out.
never thought that you would do that, but it is for the reason to get the air out of it.
Yes, it's to get the air out.
Okay.
And there's going to be little pockets of air. It keeps
You're
it.
putting more venison in there than I actually thought would go in there. I'm amazed how much
I'm
you're putting
going
in
to
there.
go to.
Because I'm thinking that this is what we should have been using.
No.
Good thing I'm
you
not
don't want to
doing-
put them in. You don't want to put them in quart jars because the heat doesn't distribute properly in the quart jars versus the smaller jars.
I'm just thinking, for me,
For
I
your-
could eat this whole thing.
Yeah,
But
well-
I'm seeing how much you're putting in there. That would be more than a meal.
Yes. Now I've got your depth. You want an inch.
This is interesting. This is a
This
depth
is
gauge?
this is a little depth gauge.
Okay.
And it's got anywhere from 1 inch headspace to 1/4 inch headspace. That would be quarter. This is an inch. I want to keep an inch headspace on the venison.
I did not know that at all. I would have just jammed that jar right full, right to the top.
The thing is, you don't want to do that because the meat will expand. It will create juices in here.
Okay.
And you do not want it to siphon out. If you go a little over, it's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah, I did not. This is.
But
I'm learning.
the juices and stuff will siphon out if you overfill them. So basically, on the 1 inch, I go by the line that's on the jar right here.
Okay.
And there's your pepper there.
Yep.
So we can see that. Now this tool also takes air out of the edges, the
That's
sides.
interesting too.
It's really good when you're, like when we we're going to do a couple of jars of soup for you.
Yep.
And we'll make sure that we've got everything down in the brine or the water, and we'll go from there.
Can we tell everybody, is there a name for that tool?
It's just, I don't know what the name is. It's you can buy them in the canning section. It's just for
So you can buy them in the canning section. So don't email us or call us where you can get that tool from, right? Because we're learning too. You know, this is the whole thing of, obviously, of doing these things is, again, it's all about learning. And I hope everybody out there is learning as much as I am.
Now, I actually bought, because there's another one. This is for your jar lift, the lid lifter.
Okay.
To take it out of the water. I actually got a kit that had the funnel, this little tool, and the jar lifter, all in the same kit.
Boys, get on Amazon and get me at least one of them kits.
Okay, now we're going to set this aside, but I'm going to get a couple of lids warming up here while we're doing this.
Yep.
I've got some hot water going over here.
And basically, you're heating the lids up to sterilize them.
No.
No?
No.
Oh.
You're basically heating them up because the rubber needs to be soft
Okay.
in order to make a good seal. Jars, we're putting raw product in here, so it's not hot. If we were doing something that was already cooked and we were putting it in the jars, our jars would have to be in boiling hot water. Usually I have a cake pan that I set the jars in, and then I pour boiling water on them to keep them hot so that the temperature change between what you're putting in it and the jar isn't there, and it doesn't fracture the jars.
Okay.
So it's, you know, with different things you got to do
Different
little
steps.
different steps. If
Yep.
I'm making spaghetti sauce, I fill my big Nesco full of my tomatoes and my peppers and onions and spices and stuff.
I'm
And
getting
then
hungry.
I'll cook. Sorry.
Right.
I'll cook that until it's the consistency that I want it, and then I will put it into hot jars.
Okay.
Now you can keep your jars hot in the oven. You can keep them hot in a boiling water bath to keep them hot until you go to fill them.
Okay.
So, hot product, hot jars. Cold product, you can just room temperature jars.
Okay.
It's not going. The temperature change is going to hurt.
So,
nothing.
since we have the product
Yep.
laying out in front of us, just keep packing the
Yep,
jars.
we're going to
okay.
pack more jars in here.
I can't believe that pile of meat is probably going to go into three jars. And these are half pints, right?
These are pints.
These are pints, I meant.
These
Yep.
are pints.
Yep.
And we got to get a little pepper. This one's a little bit bigger. This one is actually a baby jalapeno.
So pint, quart,
pint, quart,
half pint.
half pint.
How many
we gotta-
sizes do they come in, typically?
These are the ones that we use.
Standard, right?
These are standard sizes.
Okay.
You got half pint.
Quart.
Oh, there is a 4 ounce,
Okay.
which is half of this.
Okay. So quart,
Pint. And these are both half,
half
pints.
pints. Okay.
Yeah, it's just
Largemouth,
and regular.
regular. Okay.
Yeah, so a little bit of heat. You can put some brown sugar in there if you like sweet heat,
Ooh,
or some maple syrup or
Yeah.
something.
that sounds good too.
I did forget. We want a little bit of salt for yours. This is just pink Himalayan salt.
And you basically just dump it on top. You don't have
Yeah.
to like blend
you
through
don't
and
have
try
to
to
blend
mix
it
it up.
through.
It's gonna work its
It's
way
about a half.
through.
It's about a half a teaspoon in pint jars.
Okay.
About a teaspoon in there. And yeah, I don't measure. I've been doing this long enough that I don't know if you can see down in the jar where the edge of this, where the meat is, it's kind of level with that.
Right. Yep. I do see that.
Okay, that you can stop there. That meat will shrink. I do like to go to the rim. Now we're gonna, what kind of veggies do you want?
Oh, when
We
it comes to veggies, the more the better.
The
There's
more
not
the
a veggie
better.
out there that I don't like to eat.
I
That's
don't,
so far, that's looking really good.
I don't measure, I just,
Yep, I'm that way too. Like to just throw it in there.
now I've got jars of chicken soup that I did 4 years ago. That still looks as good as what it did back then.
See, that's the great part again about canning things, you know.
And it's so convenient
It
because
is.
you get home, I don't know what to fix. You go down in the pantry, you look, you got all this beautiful produce and meats, and there you go. Okay, those are Roma tomatoes. Those are out of my garden.
Okay. Ooh, them look good.
And now we've got a couple of potatoes here. We do have to peel potatoes.
Okay.
We do have
Let's
to
tell
peel-
everybody why we have to peel the potatoes. We got to peel.
We got to peel the
carrots.
carrots. We got to peel the potatoes.
That one.
Sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, potatoes, rutabaga, root crops. The tops and stuff grow above the ground. The rest grow in the ground. But you don't know what kind of microorganisms are in the dirt, so therefore you got to peel them.
Okay.
The cooking with the skins
Kills
on,
everything?
it kills everything.
Okay.
With the skin on it, you're actually keeping the organisms in possibly some dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you can't see botulism, and botulism is in the dirt.
Okay.
So it's a safety thing. It's something that I was taught. There are some people that don't do it. All right. I got some potatoes in here. I got some carrots in here. Now, I kind of pack that down a little bit.
Okay.
Got to be able to put the veggies in there.
It's amazing how much you were getting into one jar. I'm dumbfounded.
Put a little fresh corn in here.
Oh.
Even with the frost and stuff, I was able to find some fresh at the farmer's market. I know the guy that grows it, so he said with the next frost, that'll be the end. So.
Seems like it was a good year for corn overall.
It was a good year for a lot
Yes,
of vegetables and fruits. I mean, the fruit production this year was amazing. So, but I'm just going to split this between the two jars. That'll kind of fill the spaces. Now, because this will create its own juice, but I am actually going to add just a touch of water to it. I do want to add some salt, a teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
If you don't add it to the soup, it's kind of bland. Okay, now what we're going to do next is we're going to put some lids on this.
Okay.
And this is just regular paper towel and white vinegar.
What's the white vinegar for?
The white vinegar takes the fat off the rim.
Okay.
So, and it cleans the rim. And we're going to take a splash of white vinegar and we're going to put it in the cooker.
Right in the
canner.
That's interesting.
Because the mineral deposits in the water will be on the jar. If you put a splash of vinegar in there, it'll keep them from getting, it doesn't hurt the jar, it just doesn't look the prettiest.
Right.
So it keeps the lime and stuff off the side
That's a
of the
great
jar.
tip.
If you take your finger and you run it on the rim,
Okay.
you can feel it's kind of like
Gritty.
it's like running your finger on a glass to play music. You know, your finger glides on there. It doesn't stick. Now, all I'm going to do is just dry it a little bit.
So the lids don't have to come to a boil at all. It just has to warm it up.
No, it just got to warm up.
So I can turn this.
Yeah, you can turn it down. And then we're going to do this finger tight.
Okay.
And I just I test. I just want it finger tight.
That's it, huh?
That's it.
Okay.
And then you just put these in the canner.
Yep.
Why
don't you really tighten it?
Because when this comes to a boil inside the jar, the steam needs to escape. And as it vacuum seals it, so the heat creates the vacuum and all the air goes out, and that's when the seal seals up.
Okay.
So you need it to be able, the stuff to escape, but you don't want stuff to siphon back in.
Okay. So eventually, will you take that lid when it cools back down and that process is done and tighten it?
After 24 hours, I take all the lids off, or all the bands off.
You take them all the way off?
I take them all the way off. I wash the jar with soap and water to get any residue that's on the outside of the can.
So basically what she's saying is that the jar would look like this.
Yes.
The lid stays on, but the ring comes off.
Right. And that's the way you store it without the band. Because
Okay.
the band can rust faster than the lid.
You are storing them without the bands on?
Yep.
The canning I have done, I've never seen that.
I do, because have you ever pulled, if you've ever pulled a jar off the
Yes.
shelf and
Yes.
you can't get the lid off?
Yes, and I've seen a lot of rust on it.
Yes, and it prevents that from happening. Because when I take it off, I wash the jar because there could be residue underneath of here that can mold.
That is an absolutely killer,
Here, you want to put that in there?
killer tip. That in there too?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, if you want, we can add a little bit of water to that. It'll create its own juice.
Okay, let's do that. I'm just doing it on this one.
I'm just going to do it on this one. I'm just going to add a little bit of
Not
water.
much though.
Not much.
Okay.
And that one I didn't get rid of the air spaces
Okay.
in. We can fix that.
Take it back out?
Yeah, we can fix that. See, I got rid of that airspace. There's one right here that if you go like this, and you can watch the air bubbles come to the top. You see that? Right there?
Yep. So again, the key is making sure you guys get the air out. And
Yeah.
It's simple. Takes a second, that's it. You don't spend
Yeah.
a lot of time on it.
And some of the stuff comes to the top. You can just kind of poke it back down into the juice.
Yep. Okay.
Simple as that. But, okay, this one was that one. I'm going to throw this back in there
Okay.
real quick, only because it was on the thing and it might cool down.
Yep.
And this is my white vinegar. I'll just redo the lid real quick.
Little white vinegar on there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then,
Tightens it and then backs it right off.
yeah, back it off only so it's just finger tight. Yeah. And this right now is just the juice from the tomatoes. The venison will create juice. I am going to add some water to this because it's only about half full of water. I just want to make sure that your soup has enough. So when we pull it out, it's full to the top. We don't want it down onto the bottom any. And I'm not
Okay.
right there.
Hey, so Gwen, let's talk about like how long do you know let's put it this way. How do you know how long to keep it in the pressure cooker?
Okay, you can look up the USDA guidelines for any kind of low acid foods like your meats, your corn, whatever, and how to can it.
So what website do you go to?
I just Googled it because I forgot my canning book.
Yep, but there is
Of
a
all
regular
things.
book that
Yes,
tells you
yes.
exactly. So
Exactly.
Okay.
There are good canning references out there by the major can jars
Okay.
companies. Again, you find them in the canning section.
Right.
But if you don't have that, you can look it up online. There's so much information online. It tells you head space, jar size, the process time, the pressure and everything. We live, our altitude is where we need 10 pounds of pressure for pressure canners. These canners do come with the heavier weight for high altitudes.
That's interesting.
If you're up in the mountains and stuff, you're above, what is it? It's over 1,000 feet that you need the 15-pound weight.
Okay.
You need more pressure higher up than you do.
Never even would have thought of that.
So depending upon where you're at, in the country even, Utah or Colorado, because of the higher altitudes, they need the high pressure valve on these. Beef, venison, pork, anything needs 75 minutes for pints, 90 minutes for quarts. So
Okay.
we're going to set this up.
Okay.
We're going to lock it. I did add 8 cups of water in here.
Okay.
Okay, I added 8 cups of water in here. We need this valve. There's a valve on top here that has exhaust, airtight exhaust on it. We want it in the exhaust spot facing this little dial here.
Okay.
Okay, now we're gonna lock it,
Yep.
and then we're gonna put it on high,
Yep.
and 80 minutes, and it's on high, and we press start. Now this has a countdown on it, which is cool. It'll bring everything up to temperature first. You'll start to see steam coming out of the top,
Okay.
and this will count down the 10 minutes, because when you're using a canner that you put on top of the stove, you wait for the steam to come out, and then you start timing it for 10 minutes. What that steam is doing is removing the air from inside of the canner.
Right.
So it has to exhaust first for 10 minutes before you put the weight on.
Okay.
And that's what this little thing is here, is the weight. On the stovetop canners, it's an actual physical weight that you lift up and put on.
Interesting.
But this will count it down. It'll, once it gets up to temperature, it'll start, the steam will start coming out, and it'll start 10-minute countdown, and then it'll show you on here that it beeps when it reaches the 10-minute mark. So then you turn this into the next stage where it starts creating the pressure in there. And then as soon as the pressure is up, it starts timing it for the amount of time.
Wow, makes it really easy.
And then you can go and you can do whatever with these where you can't with the regular canners, because then you can go and watch TV, go take a nap, whatever, because when it's done, it shuts itself off. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, while that's cooking there,
Yeah.
I'll show you what I did last night. Now, again, it's off. I've got it unplugged.
It's all cooled down.
It's all cooled down.
Yep.
So now
So this product is you did last night? Wow.
Yeah. And this is venison.
Ooh.
This is salmon.
Oh. Oh.
And I didn't, okay, this one just has salt in it. Now, they're still warm.
Yep, I feel it.
They were hot when, so you can feel the outside of the jar is kind of yucky.
Yep, kind of gritty.
There's some stuff on
Look
it.
at that, yeah.
There's some stuff on it. But do not remove the band for 24 hours. Generally, by the time the canner cools down that you can open it up, all these lids are sealed. They're all concave. They're all sealed. Every once in a while, you will have a lid that fails. And that's probably because it siphoned the juices out versus and some of the fat or something got between the lid and it didn't create a really good seal. But for the most part, when you're washing them with the bands off, you can see how loose that is.
Yeah. Ah.
That's because they're still warm.
Yep.
Okay.
So once they cool down,
Once
it'll
they
tighten
cool
up.
down, they'll tighten up. I like to back it off just a little bit because they're already sealed and I don't want them stuck shut. Until that seal is done, don't touch the band because it could interfere with the seal. You do, and don't push down on it. If it's not sealed, don't push down on it. It's a false seal.
Okay. So my next question is that since you just did these last night, how long before you can actually eat these?
You can open them up and eat them right now.
Okay.
You can open them up and eat them right now. If they don't seal within 24 hours, put them in the refrigerator.
Okay. And eat them up.
And use them within 2 weeks.
Right. Eat them up.
Eat them up.
Do you think as time goes on, it gets better? Because it ferments a little bit in there, or it
well,
doesn't
it doesn't ferment.
It doesn't, okay.
It doesn't ferment. If it ferments, the
We
lid
got
will
a
blow
problem.
off.
We got a
The
problem.
lid will blow off.
Yep.
Or you'll see mold.
Okay.
Over time, it flavors through better.
Okay. That's
Not ferments.
Very well said. Flavors through better.
Especially if you've got your peppers and stuff.
Peppers.
They say this time of year, don't open them till Christmas.
Okay.
So if you put hot peppers in there, wait until Christmas to open those jars.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I hope that you guys and gals learned as much as I did this morning. Unbelievable, the things you can learn when you have an expert in the house here. Hey, Gwen, thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you,
that,
Larry.
everybody. And hey, for checking out more of our videos, just go to Larry Smith Outdoors. We've got all sorts of videos from A to Z. So appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel down below. We really appreciate that big time. And remember, it is a great day to be alive.